Okay, so here I have my audience for my deliberative speech, my niece Elena, and some of my friends online. Um, so this is going to be my deliberative speech on tattoos. So I just wanted to start with, when I was a kid, I personally thought tattoos were magical. I thought, a witch just suddenly made them appear on someone's body and that they had magical properties. Being that I came from a family of immigrants, they were conservatively Muslim, and so it just really wasn't part of their culture. I had no idea, what tattoos were all about. And so this speech I'm going to be giving is going to be about why and how tattoos are taboo and how the world has been slowly changing in order to accommodate self expression through your body, um, while also discussing the remaining archaic etiquette that still remains in the workplace. Um, we'll be talking about how, allowing your employees to have a little bit more wiggle room with tattoos would benefit employers, and harboring a more welcoming environment for self expression. So, everyone watching this video right now falls somewhere on the career hierarchy, whether, they're moving up and down the corporate ladder. Some people, in this class probably don't even have a job yet, whereas others are probably maybe someone's boss. But the fact of the matter is, a new generation is taking over while a lot of people are walking into their retirement. And so, um, these new people our age, are finally having a say as to what they expect in the future work culture. Personally, I have a lot of, visible tattoos on my body, and I've had several body modifications throughout my lifetime. On the same token, I have a career in banking, and I've been able to maintain top sales in my company, and several employers have always praised me on my outstanding work ethic and just generally exceeding expectations with my work. Um, so we're going to discuss, the first thing is, why is there such a history of disdain for tattoos? And what I think that really boils down to is, back in the day, tattoos were often made with toxic ink. They were often made with poor quality ink, and they would start out looking fresh, but then over time they would bleed. So basically, it would get really blurry and just not look good. There was a professor, Joanne Eicher, who is a professor of design, housing, and apparel at the University of Minnesota, and she pointed out that tattoos back in the day were generally associated with ruffians and sailors, and people back then would intentionally get tattoos because they wanted to look fierce, they wanted to look intimidating because they didn't really have anything else to lose. But now tattoos have moved on to being more about self expression, about sentiment, about tradition. Back then, the older generation really focused on position of power. Rather, they wanted to dictate to their employees what they can do. They wanted their employees, they expected them to be clean cut, they wanted them to be stoic and professional and basically unseen in uniform. But on the same token, they also expected women to wear skirts and pantyhose and not have any opinions in the workplace. So clearly, times are changing, and even to this day, even though times have changed, when I tell you to picture a doctor, you're most likely picturing a tall, well-kept white man in a lab coat with a stethoscope. Um, but the reality is, times are changing and we're becoming more inclusive and more of a tolerant society. So, in the survey that I did for my deliberative speech, it seemed like a lot of people had a desire for meaningful tattoos. A lot of people wanted to have body modifications, but on the same note, a lot of people were afraid of getting them because they were afraid of job security in their future or currently. And A lot of people think, oh, well, no one's gonna hire me as a doctor if I have sleeves of tattoos. There's no chance for me to even show my potential. Um, in today's culture, a lot of company handbooks and policies and procedures specifically say no visible tattoos. But when I first entered the career of banking, I spent hundreds of dollars on concealer, and I spent so many hours hiding my tattoos in fear of, losing my job or getting reprimanded. But after working there for a while, I noticed my own manager had tattoos that were kind of like hidden in plain sight. I had this one coworker who had like a wreath of flowers around her wrist, clearly visible, and she did basically this where she had a Fitbit just kind of covering it. Um, the manager just told her, just try to show like you're trying to cover it instead of just flashing your tattoos. Um, you know, so it was clearly a gray area. They said you couldn't have tattoos, but really they didn't care. Um, in interviews, you're expected to look as clean as possible with no telltale signs as to who you are. And really, in this day and age, it's so easy to, look up your employees on Facebook and see how they actually behave. And even then, 1 year into working at a company, your coworkers and your boss will really know who you are as a person. You'll have workplace banter that probably gives, human resources white hairs. Even in the military, for example, older generals and people in power in the military are retiring, and the Navy is recognizing that they're losing really viable candidates that pass all the marks, and the only reason why they're getting disqualified is because they have tattoos. And I'm sure you probably heard, being in a more Navy town, that it's getting hard for them to recruit. They're really struggling to recruit people. Um, so they're becoming more relaxed in their policies about tattoos in order to get people to join the Navy and in the military in general. I believe as long as the tattoos aren't vulgar or offensive, having them won't hinder their performance at all. And so, just like in the journey for women's equality, the first woman doctor was probably judged based on just her sex alone, but she had to keep trudging through and just show her capabilities. Um, Really, where we are nowadays in a society, we're halfway there. We've dipped our toes in the water and we recognize the water's just fine, but the pool is not going to swim itself. So let's discuss how the world would benefit from harboring a more accepting culture for tattoos and body modifications. For one, I believe it would make happier employees. If you think about it, um, dressing up your body in the way that expresses yourself is kind of like when you move into a house and you're unboxing everything and hanging pictures on the walls. It's a very therapeutic experience about learning yourself. For employees to feel wholly accepted, and it makes them feel like, okay, this company is accepting me for who I am, and that's something that they want to harbor dedication to a company. They want to stay with a company that is okay with them being who they are. Um, and for employers, really, the main benefit here is that it allows them time to focus on what really matters in character assessment. You could have a clean shaven employee look all prim and proper, but he can still steal from the company. He could still have poor work ethic, just general bad behavior. So it's hard to analyze employees based on their image, because it doesn't mean that the way they look makes them a better employee. It just means that they're better at flying under the radar. Nowadays, we have a lot better way of scanning for good employees. We look at their credit history. We'll do background checks. Look at their social media interactions and their work history references, so on and so forth. And that's how we recognize what an actual strong candidate is. I think really capabilities are shown deliberately and with time. The best way to find out who's a good employee is with time, really, and their actions. If you think about it, a lot of people, specifically politicians, they present well, they look sharp, but if you truly observe them, you can kind of tell they have little to no sustenance, and it's not easily recognizable at a glance. But their true colors show with time. So, as the old saying goes, you can't really judge a book by its cover. And, back in the day, they had good reasons to be against tattoos and body modifications, but times are changing, and we've invented better measures for aptitude tests and, determining their social and mathematical skills. And to reject an employee just because they have a septum piercing, you're losing out on a potentially highly capable and very dedicated employee to another company that's more progressive, who's willing to give them perhaps work from home just because your company has outdated practices. So the office environment is definitely evolving. In today's day and age, it would be completely unfathomable for a boss to go and pinch the butt of his secretary or smoke cigarettes in the office. And just the same, I believe decades from now, declining a job just because someone has cartoon characters on a sleeve of tattoos would be equally ridiculous. So, showing your confidence and your capabilities and let your actions speak for yourself, rather than your outward appearance, rather. So that's my deliberative speech. Thank you for listening.